Don't be such a crybaby. Why are you being so dramatic? Not that big of a deal. Just relax. Do any of these sound familiar to you? Did you hear these things growing up all the time, maybe, like I did? Well, it's phrases like this and, attitudes and mindsets like this that can actually really cause a lot of damage long term. While those who tell us these things are probably, doing their best and just trying to help and help us relax, what they don't realize is that they're actually showing us or teaching us, whether it's, directly, intentionally, or not intentional, they are teaching us to keep our emotions inside, to bottle up our emotions, to suppress our feelings and not express them. What happens is emotions. What is an emotion? It's really just energy in motion. And energy is meant to come into our bodies, come through our bodies, and leave our bodies, such as emotions and feelings. It's completely normal to have different feelings. And it's actually not normal to be happy and relaxed and chill and, motivated all the time. It's just not reality. We need the darkness in order to see the light. And that goes with emotions too. We need to feel emotions that can be difficult, maybe even confusing and unpleasant at times, so that we can appreciate the beautiful things in life, so that we can also experience, the happy, more pleasant and calming emotions. However, most of us were not brought up this way, and I am just one of many who can say that that was the case for me. I think I'm a very emotional person, so I would often express those emotions, but it was not really accepted with open arms. I was often heard things like, oh, you're being a crybaby, stop being so dramatic, etc., etc. And so I would try and suppress those emotions and hold them in. I felt like it was wrong to express them, to talk about them even. But what happens is the more that you try and hold this energy inside of you, you can only do it for so long, and you never quite resolve it when you hold it in. So it just stays there. It actually gets stored in a specific area of your body, in your body tissue, in the tissues. It can even be in an organ or some part of your body, and it actually stays there until, it can be released and expressed, and therefore resolved and move on and leave. So we should really be allowing ourselves to feel emotions, allow them to come in, feel them, and then allow them to leave. If we do not feel them, if we do not acknowledge them, they do not leave. They get trapped in your body. And one of two things are going to happen if you have trapped emotions, or very possibly both will happen. You're either going to, continue to try and suppress them and bottle them up as much as you can for as long as you can until it's an explosion and they just come out and express themselves on their own, and it's out of control, right? It's something you can't control, and it can be very dramatic then at that point, which is often what happened with me, right? I would bottle them up and try to ignore them or just suppress them as much as I could until, you just get to that boiling point and it would just overflow, and then I would explode and it would be very unpleasant. And, when that happens, it's probably happened to you before. I think it's happened to all of us. Then we sometimes also do things and say things when we're feeling that emotion so strongly, like I said, that we can't control. So we do and say things that we often regret, right? And we wouldn't normally do. It's not really who we are. It's just all of this time and this accumulation of energy from these emotions that have been trapped inside of us that kind of just takes over, and we're not thinking logically, right? We are not being our true selves, and it's not our true personality shining through. So, who wants that, right? None of us want that. We've all probably experienced it. If you have, let me know in the comments. We can kind of make light of this and laugh about it, and that's, one good way of like healing, but in the end, it's not pleasant, and we often look back and like feel regret, right, about how we acted. And that doesn't help. It's just another emotion that kind of adds on, and it's just kind of this endless cycle. But what I've realized as well lately with the things I've been going through, if you're not sure exactly what that is, feel free to look at the other videos on this channel, which I will link down in the comments section below, especially the first, I think, or second video where I get into it a little bit more. But basically, I have diagnosis with certain illnesses, and many illnesses or diseases out there today, and I think cancer is a big one of them. It's often because of things that we've been holding inside. You have like this charge of energy coming into you, and there's nowhere for it to go. There's no escape because you're not releasing it. And especially if it stays there over time, a long period of time, that eventually is going to be expressed. It's going to accumulate, and it's going to be expressed in some sort of way, which often turns into things that we may know of as, diseases. It's all related, the psyche and how we're feeling about things, our emotions, our brain, and our bodies, and the different, areas of our bodies. It's all connected. And so when you are suppressing emotions or not speaking your truth, it's not just something like psychological or emotional that you're dealing with. At least, if you don't deal with it, then it can often become physical. And, I've been guilty of doing this basically my whole life because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I thought that the best way for me to show up in life for myself, but especially for other people, right? To not like be a burden on other people, to not, have other people, have to like listen to my problems and things. I always wanted to be the person who was there to support others. And so I was, or put on this, like at least act of being like the strong one, the independent one, the one who's always positive. A lot of time it wasn't really how I was feeling, it wasn't the truth of that moment, but I was just hiding it, suppressing it because I didn't want people to worry about me. I didn't want to add to their problems. Like I said, I always thought of myself as this like very strong, independent, everything's okay, she's got everything together person. And I also really, without realizing it at the time, it's only looking back now that I can really realize this is what I was doing, but without, or at the same time, and even more so, wanting other people to see me that way. And that's because of my upbringing. And, we all do the best that we can. I have no blame for everyone. And in the end, like, I'm taking responsibility for how I've been dealing with things, even though I may not have known better at the time. Like, it is my responsibility, not anyone else's, right? I'm the one who decided to do this in the end, view myself in this way and live according to this, like, story. And I think internally, I often felt like and saw myself like a victim, would kind of like feel bad for myself and things like that, like have that kind of victim, attitude or mentality. But on the external, in the outer world, I was not showing that to people. And that's not something I want to be either, the victim by any means. But like that was the truth of how I felt in some situations, but I would never, express that. I was always putting on that happy, relaxed, easygoing, all is good, like attitude. And to this day, it's really difficult for me to express my emotions, especially when they are strong emotions, of course, and like very personal. Hence why I'm even getting like a little bit emotional. In this video, it is not easy for me to talk about these things, but I'm learning that easy doesn't mean right, doesn't mean it's correct, it doesn't mean that it is like good for you. Here I am creating these videos to, hopefully help other people see all these things and realize all these things that I've realized through this process after having like a wake-up call like I did. So hopefully other people don't need to go through something like that in order to have that, or if you are, maybe this will help you. But really at the same time, it's also, for me, it's also really therapeutic for me to just talk about this and share it. I am realizing that I don't need to be this like, or put on, this like facade of like this perfect, happy, always strong, independent, healthy person. And honestly, I am healthy. I do consider myself healthy, and I've always kind of eaten pretty healthy compared to the majority. So, it was definitely a surprise when I got that news. But at the same time, I just knew that it wasn't because of like external factors like with health and food and diet or anything like that, even though one of the first changes I made was to my diet and got, even cleaner with that and other things, made sure I was moving more because, I do work at home online, and it can get easy to kind of just, end up sitting for long periods of time. So there's a lot of different things like I've done as well physically, and I think the physical affects 100%, the emotional and the mind, but it's really important to recognize and acknowledge the fact that the mind and the emotions can affect the physical, can affect the body to the same degree. And often this happens, without our awareness. It's a subconscious process, but everything is connected. It's all the same energy. So it's really, really important to be able to express your emotions and, be okay with sharing the truth about how you feel with people and accepting help and support from people in your life. And so yeah, how do you express your emotions? There's so many ways, and I will likely be doing more videos about this and going more in depth. But one of the simplest things that you can do that can make such a big difference is just talking about it. Our words are energy. It's a way of expressing, releasing, expelling energy from our bodies. So just talking about it, even though in my case that often means ending up crying and getting really emotional. And that's another way, actually, just crying. We've been taught, so many people in so many, especially, in certain cultures or certain genders and things, we've been taught that, don't cry, that's you're weak if you cry, you're weak if you show your emotions, if you show your vulnerability. But, that's just really not true. You are just being real. And actually, I think now that that's actually really brave and strong, because trust me, this is taking a lot of bravery and courage to talk about for me. It's also just an emotional day. I won't get into it, but I felt really called to make this video. I was actually going to record a different video on a different subject, but yeah, I just really felt called, this is happening for a reason, and I just need to express it. Here I am, kind of being that example. I want to live what I'm talking about and be the example of it and not just talk and not do. So here you go. But yes, so crying is actually a very good way to release emotion. Just speaking and expressing can help so much. Of course, there's other things you can do. We all know that anger, in a very healthy way of expressing anger, can be getting a punching bag and just punching it out, which is actually something we're in the process of doing at our house as well. I want to have that set up for those moments. But even if you don't have a punching bag, punch your pillow, scream into your pillow, close the bathroom door and scream in there and turn on the water. I don't know. Go for a run, right? Of course, sports and moving your body is often really helpful as well. And sometimes just listening to music can be very helpful as well, right? It depends on the emotion and what options you kind of have available to you. But if we can find outlets that are healthy and safe, and if you can just think about it a little bit ahead of time, then when the moment comes that you're feeling that, you already know, because in those moments, it's not the right time to be making the decision and figuring out, okay, how do I deal with this? You're not going to think logically. If you're in if you're in an anger rampage, or if you're feeling really sad or overwhelmed, you're not going to think logically and clearly, right? So we want to think about this ahead of time. Okay, if I feel X, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with that? How am I going to express that emotion? And I mean, there's things that I've gone through that are pretty heavy, and very personal, related to fertility, related to being a woman, and also just so many things that life, of course, can throw at you, but it's all there for you to learn, okay, and to grow from if you see it that way and are willing to, make the changes necessary to get there. But at 19, I did receive a diagnosis of MRKH syndrome, which is just a short name for saying, I don't even know exactly. I can never say the actual thing. It's a long name. I think it's a German guy's name or someone's name. I was told at 19 that I was born without a womb, that I was born without a uterus. Very traumatic. for me, yet I didn't express that. But anyways, I share this with you now in this particular moment because I want you to understand, from my experience at least, hopefully it will help you understand how much of an impact it can have. Because I suppressed those emotions and kept this within me, and, you know, it also created a lot of other issues, of course, about like, you know, not feeling like I was enough, all these other things. But I didn't look for support and I didn't express it. And I believe now, through what I've learned through German New Medicine, which, by the way, if you haven't heard about that yet, look it up, research it. Maybe I'll leave a link for that, their like main website as well. It's super interesting, but it talks about how the psyche, and therefore like your emotions and how you perceive things, directly affects your brain. And depending on the area of your brain, it's going to affect a certain area of your body, because again, it's all connected. And again, I'll probably get into that in another video as well. And sometimes an intervention is needed. But my point is, I'm learning and working on this, and I think it's something everybody should know. And I'm just trying to bring awareness. You know, I think so many of us are brought up with this idea that, yeah, expressing your emotions and telling people how you feel about things is not okay, or it's a weakness or something. But actually, it's probably the best thing you can do for yourself. And it also just allows you to be more real with people, right? And build more like meaningful, deep relationships with people and friendships. They get to see the real you, you know, and often when you also open up with people and tell them like, and you're real with them, then they're more likely to open up with you and be real with you. So yeah, that's my message for today. Let me know if you've experienced this at all, if this is something you've been doing, if you've suppressed emotions, or maybe you've been working towards expressing them more. And if you are, what have you been using? What forms of like expression have you been using? I'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments. And yeah, if you like this video and you want to see more, please give it a like and subscribe.